good, good. I know that a lot of you know, I don't know if all of you know, that I just recently retired from my job. And yeah, I'm just kind of noting that because I found a very interesting thing about it is everybody congratulates me on it. And even Jean, she'll go out to see people who don't even know me, and they'll say he's retired, and they say, oh, well, tell him congratulations. And I'm thinking, you know, retiring is when you quit doing something. I actually have gotten more congratulations for quitting than for anything I ever actually did. So I was thinking maybe I should quit doing things more. Just a little side note, it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But we have 3 themes this month, and it's nurturing, self, and
expansion.
Yeah, some other things that I wasn't exactly sure of, but I'm absolutely sure that my talk covers it. So whatever the theme is, I'm sure I'm covering that in this talk. And so it's sort of about nurturing. And, you know, in our lives, we have choices, we have alternatives. We can either just drift through life and accept what happens, or we can attempt to control and make determinations about it and have an intention about it. So I was thinking of that in different aspects. So you take like the physical aspect. Now, things can happen to us. We can get a severe disease, we can be in an accident, things that are beyond our control. But outside of that, we probably have some control about our physical health. I mean, we can, if we choose, just not pay any attention to it, just sit around all day, eat kind of junk food, and our body's going to deteriorate. And you know what's interesting about that is you don't have to plan that. You don't have to say, today I'm going to sit around and not do anything and my body is going to go downhill. It just happens that way, doesn't it? It's not like you get up and you were kind of in a daze and suddenly you've created this wonderful healthy salad, you know. You might be kind of in a daze and suddenly you're eating Twinkies. But doing nothing and just taking that will happen in life unless we have some intention and focus on what we're doing. So like physically, we can exercise regularly, we can eat healthy meals, and that will have an effect on our lives. But the other interesting part about it is not if we do it just once, you know? If you sit around all day long for 10 years and then you say, you know what? I'm going to exercise today. I'm going to get up and walk for a mile. I'm going to do some stretches and stuff. And then the next day, you go to sitting around not doing anything. It's not going to have the slightest effect on your health. If you eat junk food constantly and today for dinner you make a healthy meal and tomorrow you go back to junk food, there's no difference in it all. In fact, if you exercise regularly, if you exercise for 20 years on a regular basis and you go 3 days without exercising, your muscles start to atrophy. That's when they'll start, somewhere around 3 days, they'll start getting weaker and smaller again. And this is the same sort of kind of in all of our lives. In your career, you can get a job and just say, well, I'm going to do enough. I've got this job. I'm just going to go every day and do it and sort of drift through that. Or you can say, I'm going to make it better. I'm going to learn. I'm going to read articles. I'm going to go to training. I'm going to practice whatever skill I need. But if you do it once, it's not going to make any difference, is it? If you read one article about your career and that's all you do to improve yourself, your career is not going anywhere. And so it's that process that makes a difference. Whenever I can, as much as I can, I jog about 3.5 miles a day, lift some weights, and that and we have hills where we are. But I looked that up one time. I think it estimated about 450 calories. Well, that's about one Big Mac. And so doing that one thing, when you exercise, that one event doesn't really help you. What it does is doing it all of the time, regularly, changes your metabolism. It changes your bone density. If you have more muscle, you actually use more calories every day doing everything. And so it's the long-term effect that we're after. And that's what nurturing is. Nurturing isn't about that one little part. It's about the long-term effect. And we can do that in anything, and we do. We do it in our physical health to one degree or another. We do it in our careers. We do it in our hobbies. We do it in our social lives. But what do we do with our spiritual lives? We come to the PLC once a week. That's a wonderful, healthy spiritual meal. But are we doing anything through the week? Or is our spirituality atrophying? Is it dying off during the week and then we come back once? We have to nurture it. We have to reach out to the divine. And Angie last week referred to that as making a phone call to God. I was surprised, though, that he didn't tell the full story about making a phone call to God. This happened a few years ago with me. I decided to look at some other churches, and I went into one. If you remember this, Angie, I went into one, and I was looking around, and I saw this phone, and it had a sign on it that says, "Direct Line to God." And I went, oh my gosh, they have a direct phone line to God. And I went over there, and it said $5,000. Oh my gosh. And I went up to minister, and I said, I see you have a direct line to God, but that's a lot of money. And he said, well, heaven's a long way off. There's a lot of long-distance charge involved in this. And I went to another church, and I said, do you guys have this direct line to God? Absolutely. There it is, $7,500. But he said, long-distance calls to heaven are really expensive. And then, I went into Angie's office, and I said, well, Angie, I've never seen it. Do you have a direct phone call line to God? He said, well, yeah, it's in the other office there. So I went in there and looked, and I said, well, Angie, somebody made a mistake with your sign. It says direct line to God, $1. These other places it was thousands. And he said, well, yeah, but for my office it's a local phone call. When we nurture our connection to the divine, we change this from a long distance call to a local call. And that's what it's about. Now, so how do we go about doing that? There's basically two aspects of it. There's Gnostic knowledge and Aiden knowledge. Now, I'm saying those are the Greek terms, because if I say Greek terms, I sound more sophisticated up here. But the Gnostic knowledge is the personal knowledge. It's your personal connection with the divine. And Aiden is the technical knowledge. And it's interesting that many other languages, like Greek, distinguish those as two totally separate things. English doesn't have that distinction. We just have the word knowledge. But those are the two types of knowledge we look at. And what we want to do is jump to that Gnostic knowledge, don't we? We want to jump in to that personal connection and start developing it right away. And too often, some people can do it. Too often, what happens is we aren't ready for it. We haven't prepared. And so we jump in, somebody's saying, well, you know what? I read this book about this new technique. Oh, good, I'm going to go in and do that. And we do it, and we're trying to develop that Gnostic aspect of it. And a month later, we're not satisfied with it anymore. But another friend says, well, I tried this religion, and it has these great things in it, and we want to run over and do that. But we don't get that satisfaction from it because we haven't learned that that's what's for us. It reminds me of this young man I knew, and he was still fairly young. He was a teacher. He hadn't been teaching very long, but I asked him how he liked it, and he said, I hate it. I'm going, well, why are you doing it? And I mean, this is real. He told me, well, when he first went off to college, his girlfriend was going to be a teacher. So he thought, wow, I'll be a teacher too. And so for 3.5 years, he studied teaching from an academic standpoint. And then that last semester, he did his teaching internship, his student teaching. And he hated it. It wasn't the same about learning about it. Doing it and finding out what that really means was different. But he had committed his 4 years of college to doing this, and he felt stuck. And you know, people get that way. I'm sure some of you in the past were in that. People are raised in churches from the time they're very young. And they're taught these things, and it's sort of stuffed into their heads. And eventually, as adults, they're in this church going, what am I doing here? I'm not getting what I want. I'm not finding that personal connection. And one of the ways to deal with that is to deal with the Iden knowledge, the technical knowledge. And to start with that, we need to take a place in our consciousness and prepare it. Angie called this last week, getting rid of the clutter. Because we all have all of this clutter in our lives. I mean, I might be a husband and a father and a son and a brother and an employee and a retired person, and I have all of these roles, I have all of these responsibilities, I'm supposed to do this and help take care of that. And that clutters up our mind. It's sort of like having a garden. If you just go out and plant things, you're going to have a mess. You've got to weed it first. You've got to clear it out and prepare it. And so we have to start with that. And then I think we should learn about things. We should learn about meditation, whatever's interests you. Physics, brain functioning, different religions, different techniques. Before you start practicing, before you dive into it, look around, take that time, learn some systems and say, what am I connecting with? What in all of this, because there's thousands of ways, there are thousands and thousands of connections to the divine, but they don't all work for everyone. You can pick up a whole lot of phone lines and they're not going to connect you to God, no matter what anybody else says. You need wrong number.